what happens to a composer when their defining feature, that special quality that distinguishes them from all others, falls out of fashion? Having once been heralded as the poster boy for Finnish music, by 1911, Jean Sibelius was engulfed in a deep personal crisis. His life's work, inspired by the landscape and legends of his beloved homeland, was in danger of being seen as nothing more than a nationalistic frivolity. His diary tells us, "Been down the last few days. The Berliner Tageblatt maintains that my earlier works were good, but that now my imagination has deserted me. It's difficult to live this life." In the early 20th century, composers were searching for a new musical language, something to follow the romanticism of the 19th century. Although Sibelius had been a successful export for Finland, he now found himself trying to compete with cutting-edge composers such as Stravinsky and Schoenberg. And with war raging in Europe, was his picture postcard sound still relevant? Composed throughout the entire duration of the First World War, Sibelius's Fifth Symphony took quite some time to perfect. Sibelius conducted its premiere in Helsinki on his 50th birthday, which had been declared a national holiday in his honour. So in Finland at least, Sibelius was still a celebrity, and his new symphony was well received. But Sibelius was a ruthless perfectionist. "I am ashamed to say it, but I am again working on the Fifth Symphony. I am wrestling with God. I'd like to give my new symphony another, more human form, something closer to the earth, something more alive." Exactly 1 year later, on his 51st birthday, a second reworked version of the symphony was performed. But now, the reaction wasn't so positive. Sibelius immediately withdrew the work, dismantled it entirely, and started to rebuild it from the ground up. So it wasn't until the 24th of November 1919 that the music would find its final and most perfect form. And interestingly, after so many revisions, it now contained just 3 movements, and not the original 4. The symphony begins with a call from the French horns. Sibelius then presents a series of tiny musical fragments, like seeds, which are planted into the woodwind section. These seeds start to grow upwards. A bit like a flower starting to bloom. But then, something new arrives. Notice how this music flows with a wave-like motion. In the first minute of the symphony, we meet 3 musical ideas, all of which have roots in nature. Unusually, they're all introduced by the woodwinds and horns. The string section, who are normally the lifeblood of a symphony, are yet to play a note. These 3 ideas are so compact, it's difficult to think of any of them as full-blown themes. They're really just tiny fragments, which Sibelius manipulates throughout the movement. Notice that the string section has now finally joined in, though their persistent motion starts to disrupt this idyllic scene. Then all of a sudden, things become far more threatening. Sibelius is famous for creating vast, beautiful landscapes and sound, bringing Finland into the orchestra. So why does this music sound so unsettled? Well, there are three possible answers: war, depression, and ill health. The Fifth Symphony was composed during a period of incredible turmoil, with the First World War and Finnish Civil War profoundly affecting Sibelius' life. Plus, his inner confidence was shattered, and he'd undergone 14 surgeries, the last of which removed a tumour from his throat. With all that, it's not surprising that there are darker moments in the symphony. When this symphony evokes darkness, irrespective of whether that's a bleak Finnish winter or something far more personal, that darkness is created using the notes of a chromatic scale. On a keyboard, the chromatic scale simply moves to the closest possible note, using all available pitches. It has a much tighter sound than a conventional scale. It feels like you're being constrained. Structurally, the first movement is just one big accelerando. Think back to how slow and measured the opening horn call was. But by the end of the movement, it sounds more like a whirlwind has arrived in the orchestra. The second movement begins with a long sustained chorale in the winds and horns, whilst a pizzicato theme appears in the strings. And that poses a bit of a problem to the listener. Which one is the tune? What are you supposed to focus on? These two ideas are so disparate, it's like you're listening to two different pieces of music at the same time. If you look at these ideas separately, there's nothing to them. They're both very straightforward, unremarkable even. It's what happens to them next that's most interesting. Sibelius adds dissonant notes into the wind chorale. Basically, he puts wrong notes into his score. And of course, they clash with everything around them. Well, until they're resolved and replaced with the right notes. Whilst underneath, the pizzicato theme in the strings turns into an elegant dance. The second movement is basically a set of variations, so we hear several different versions of the same material. One of the tricks Sibelius uses to make these variations sound different is to alter the speed of the music, though when things slow down, you don't get to relax for long. The third and final movement is an electrifying finale. This music seems to fizz and sparkle, and it begins at breakneck speed. Sibelius has saved something very special for this finale. We know that inspiration for the music arrived on the 21st of April 1915, because in his diary he wrote, "Today at 10 to 11 I saw 16 swans, one of my greatest experiences. Lord God, that beauty! They circled over me for a long time, then disappeared into the solar haze like a gleaming silver ribbon." It's amazing music, and at its heart is a glorious theme representing the 16 swans played by the French horns, and it's known as the Swan Hymn. Although it's nothing more than a simple repeating sequence of notes, this music perfectly embodies the image of flying swans. Just look at its shape. This theme is the work of a genius. Sibelius battled for years to find the perfect shape for this symphony, and he eventually succeeded by carefully controlling its tempo. Think back to the first movement. It started slowly but gradually got faster, whilst here it starts off like a racehorse but then slows to a majestic finale. The perfect form turned out to be nothing more than a simple arc. And it's no surprise that in the closing bars, the brass section triumphantly sing out the Swan Hymn. But then something quite unexpected happens. Sibelius struggles to find the perfect final chord. And it's definitely not that one. But that's Sibelius down to a T. He's a perfectionist who always gets things right in the end.